At the KSMO studios, time for us to sit down with hospital administrator Kasey Lucas. He has made it in, and we kind of had a little pause on that Thursday, and a little something going around the office. We just don't need anybody to have a problem. So
No.
Kasey was kind enough to come in today, so we appreciate that, and good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you staying healthy out there. Well, it was a busy last Tuesday over at the SMDH boardroom, but nobody's there.
That's true.
You were there, mate. Was it one person in there too?
Yeah, a couple of us, but yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty much an all Zoom meeting, and we had obviously one of those meetings where normally in October we have an audit report from BK&D. Of course, with all the stuff going on, and everybody knows it. Got pushed back a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the audit. We're not going to go into a whole bunch of detail because, Kasey, this is one of those years I don't think anybody would truly understand it. I mean, I was listening to it, and I've been around and gone to every board meeting except for a couple, and I usually know pretty much what's going on. There were some things that they were talking about. I said, well, okay, I understand this, but I don't know why they're doing that. Can't figure it out. But here's a couple of things. First off, it was an unmodified opinion, which means it's a clean audit.
Yes.
That's the good news. That's really all you need to know. That means everything was accounted for, and there's nobody taking money out, and there's not money being lost somewhere, and you're not gambling on, on the Rams or anything like that.
Oh, no. None of that.
Yeah, nothing bad. We do all know that the cash and investment position went up because of the extra money that's been made available to the hospital.
Yes.
However, not all that money is being recognized as an asset. So that's one of the things they said, that the Deferred CARES Act money and the Medicare advance payments, those are liabilities.
Yes.
You still owed them.
Yes. Yep.
It's like a loan, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's like a loan that you don't know how to use today. Can we use those dollars? Can we just at this point new guidance came out last Wednesday. So
Right after the
right after board meeting, new guidance came out. So it is still up in the air, and it is still we want some time before the end of this fiscal year, which again ends June 30 of 2021, and so we will be in this next 6 months, 7 months, we will be checking to see exactly what we can do to use those dollars, not use those dollars, what goes back to the government, what does not. And I think the misconception from the onset was, hey, hospitals are going to have a tough time, one, with extra expenses because of COVID. And
which did happen.
Sure. And two, lost revenue, lost volume because of COVID.
Which also happened.
And so I think that generally was what our thoughts were when we came into this thing.
Sure.
And again, we took advantage of a couple of opportunities. One, the government just issued, the CARES Act just issued $4 million of
help.
And so we have that, we set that aside.
Right.
They did also allow us to apply for advanced Medicare payments,
Right.
Okay, so accelerated payments,
Right.
And we applied for that.
Right.
And we received about roughly $3.3 million in those funds. So all of those are in this 9.7 million that we're saying cash has increased up to
Like
that
about
point.
7.7.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're looking at that, and so today that's on our books as a payable, as a liability.
Exactly.
And so,
and then you issued bonds. I mean, of all times to start going and renovating the hospital. But no, you issued bonds.
Those things weren't in play.
I know they sure weren't playing. I know that. But then you had $2.5 million of bond income come in that goes into cash as well.
Yes.
So when you start looking at about 9.736,
there you go.
There it is. It's all right there. Actually, you're down a little bit because you've already been making payments.
Yes.
On some of the improvements that have been made. So
very
good. The operating losses, we know that the hospital got hit hard, and fiscal years are hard. Right when it looked like things were starting to turn around and get into January and February, things were looking better for the hospital, and bam, here comes March, and just kind of hammered everybody
Yes.
in March, April, and May.
Yes.
So another loss for the hospital over the year, but you knew that was going to happen.
Yes.
I mean, everybody knew it was going to
Yes.
happen. I don't think there was a hospital out there that made money in those 3 months, which could
No.
affect anybody's fiscal year.
No, and that's what BKD, they came in and said, hey, this is what we're seeing. Your trends are the trends of the,
Exactly. So
of
you're
the
not doing
industry.
anything
Right.
nobody else is doing.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. And Gene explained it very well to the board, that saying, guys, there actually was some positives taken out of the audit report. We'll touch on those in just a minute. But as we always talk about, and then one of the little highlights, as they always say, there's not enough separation in the payables and the receivables.
Sure.
That is an every year thing. And I don't care if
Yes.
you have 50 employees. I think they'd still say that.
Yeah,
It always
Yeah.
amazes me, how many people would it take to make them happy? I mean, was it one person per
and
account?
the problem is that you have to have the people, and then the access for each individual has to be tailored in a way
Right.
that takes out all of the
There can be no crossover.
no crossover,
None.
and that's
So we grew
Not.
up. We grew up in a time where common sense
yeah.
said that can't happen because you have to know what's coming in to know what's going out.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if you start writing checks and you don't have the money coming in, banks aren't going to like that. Well, banks might, because you're going to have to pay them more money, but the people on the other side of your vendors are not going to like it. There was a reconciliation of some income. Of course, we all know that there was no chief financial officer for a while, so the hospital was actually having to do a lot of these things in-house, trying to do the best they could, and there were some corrections.
Yes.
Well, that's normal,
Yes.
when you have that changeover. So we'll go right through that. So it was a sizable amount, but a lot of it was the CARES Act money. Just to make it honest with you, how it was to be.
Yes.
How it was to be recognized. It's unearned revenue or liability.
Yes.
It's like a loan. It's a loan that you haven't touched yet. It's there.
Yes.
You have to recognize it, but
Yeah.
it's like the elusive money.
Yes.
Grab for
It's
it.
always beyond our reach.
And-
Just beyond.
But as long as you don't need it and you can give
Yes.
it back, I think it's great.
Yes.
I think it's great. All right, so let's move forward. Current assets, we already mentioned, we're way up. A lot of that is due to the extra money that has come in, so don't really want to harp on that. The accounts receivable has gone up a little bit,
Yes.
but we'll talk later how that is. We're still working on that private patient, and it's getting better. Oh, it's
Yes,
getting
and,
better.
and we cover that. I mean, that has been ongoing.
For a
We cover
year.
that in our financial statements every month,
Right.
at the board meeting every month.
Right, so that is getting better. And there was some Medicaid and Medicare receivables that had gone up a little bit, but that's,
Yes.
typical. And right now, I'm not sure how quickly you're getting a turnaround, because how many people are working in TC to send you the money?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and the you had mentioned the Medicare receivables and the payables, and again, when we received that $3.3 million, this is how much things have changed
Right.
over that time. In late April, early May, we received those accelerated payments.
Right.
Okay, and we thought immediately 120 days later, which puts us into August, we were going to have to start that
Okay.
payment. Late August, we were going to have to start that payment back, and that's postponed, and it won't go into effect for
Who knows?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's your guess on when that
No.
again something at least a year off from when we thought it was. It's now a year later, and when they start that back, where we assumed they would just take, it would be dollar for dollar recognition of, hey, when we send you claims of $100,000. I mean, you've received $3.3 million, so
Yeah.
we're not going to send you any money.
Right.
You just use that. And to me, that was never really a great solution for help, because
Right.
it postponed the
The
cash.
inevitable.
Yeah,
You're
the
gonna have to
the
pay it
cash
back, are you?
challenge, but it will be If I don't receive $100,000, when you say you're going to send me $100,000, it's going to be, if I don't have those dollars, if I've used those dollars, then it will hurt me substantially at that point.
Down the
Whenever
road.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very
So,
good. The days in accounts receivable, we'll just really quick, we're going to fly through this actually. Artificially inflated because of those extra dollars that we talk about. Had 58 days revenue and accounts receivable. Right now, that's way overstated. So
Yeah.
we all know that. Simply because those extra dollars are just sitting there. They're not well, I would not call active dollars. They're kind of what I call dormant dollars.
well, and when you start looking at days revenue and accounts receivable, if my revenues have went way down and my accounts receivable is still the same amount, it's more days.
Sure.
And the calculation it grows
Just goes
because of
higher.
that low revenue. So
Right, and then they show the historical gross and net receivables. Total assets, of course, we talk about the different things going on at the hospital, the extra money coming in, the improvements being made. Big difference in some numbers
Yes.
there.
Yes.
But again, just the CARES Act really has kind of just discombobulated people with their accounting. I think it's just so hard to account for it because they keep changing the rules.
Sure.
So anyway, the current assets went to 16 million, an increase of 9. We already talked about that money. And then the non-current cash and investments, that's gone up because you have some money set aside. You got some construction work you're doing.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
already been, it's committed. It
Yes.
hasn't been spent yet.
No.
And then the property's gone up because you're building new
Yeah.
assets.
Yeah.
So it comes out of gets paid out of cash, goes into property
Yep.
in some cases.
Yes.
And that's being depreciated. Days cash on hand, $177. 177 days, I should say. Nice.
Of cash we can't use, but that's
Cash.
okay.
But it's cash on hand.
It is.
And the historical days, again, show that basically 50, usually about 50 to
Yes.
60,
Yes.
somewhere in
Yes.
there. 2 months has usually been about
Yep.
the kind of rule of thumb. 3 months is great.
Yes.
We've been up there.
Yes.
But 2 months is kind of what they say you want to be at minimum, right? Isn't that about right?
That's
that
about
way,
right.
that with the billing cycle takes about that long to get your money. Usually it's about 60 days.
Yeah.
Because you get everybody in, you get billed out, it goes out near, off and
Well,
on through the
yeah.
month, and then it comes in off and on through the month. But
And
some
some
people just pay at
insurances-
the end of the month.
Some insurances hold off that long, but a lot of them, you get that back. But
Some insurances don't tell you anything.
no.
I know for a fact. All right, liabilities and net assets. Again, some of the liabilities, well, some of that money is a liability.
Yes.
But the long-term debt's gone up because you are improving the hospital, right now. So that number, which has been, as I mentioned later on, at about 5% of your debt-to-equity ratio.
Yep.
5, okay? That's nothing.
Right.
Critical access hospitals, if you're under 45, you're doing great, and you're under 45. So anyway, you're still doing very good, and the net position is still solid. And again, like I said, the long-term gets only up because you are making those improvements in the
Yes.
hospital. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
well, you got a new ambulance in there. You got, did the MRI get put in last year? Was it bought before the end of the year, fiscal year? Or did it come in
no,
right after?
it came in after.
Okay, so that's not even included in there.
Yeah.
So that's even higher now.
Yeah.
Debt to capitalization, we already talked about. We were at 5.
Yep.
Now we're at 36.
Now we're at 36.
But, they'll be paying that down, and they'll go whittle it down quicker. 45% is still that's
Yeah.
good for a critical access hospital, be 45. The statement of operations did show a loss, as we mentioned, for the year last year, which we knew was going to happen with all the stuff going on. There's nothing you can do.
No.
And-
No, and if we can't use that stimulus money or that CARES Act funding to offset any loss, then that's what we show.
Right.
So,
And hopefully the idea is if you need it, it's there.
yes.
Yeah. And the net operating margin, obviously with a loss, shows minus 6.7. That's the operating margin. And we have, critical access hospitals don't make much. know,
No.
like you get reimbursed for your Medicare at 99%. It used to be 101.
Yeah.
Now it's 99. So that's sequestered. When are they ever going to get rid of that? That doesn't even
Yeah,
make any sense why
I
it's
know.
still hanging on. But at 99%, which basically means that they don't even make any money on the people in Medicare that they get in.
No. And historically, right at break even is what critical access hospitals do.
Right.
And so, and we're not there. Again, I think the trend that we have seen is normal for the fiscal year of 2020. So,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Everybody.
that is what, again, that's what BKD is telling us.
Yeah.
And yes, I think we have to mention we've still had issues with our accounts receivable, with bad debt. That is something that year over year
Right.
for the last 2 years has increased, and we are still in the process of reconciling, getting a process that works for us. Again, we are using an outsourced company to bill our insurance company or insurance for us. And again, you would hope that would be enough, and that's still not enough. There's still some reconciling that we have to do. And again, you know, an employee that you contract from miles away, they will process the work as much and as little as you will let them, you know, or that they can get by with.
Sure.
So again, we still have to monitor them on a daily basis to make sure we're getting that.
It's hard to catch up. Isn't
It
it?
is.
It's hard
It
to
is
catch
very
up.
hard to catch up.
And just you got to give people some time. But don't forget, if you do have a bill at the hospital, you will be getting it. It may take a while to get it, but you'll get it. And of course, you still have those options when you get it of being able to take your 25% when you get
Yes.
that bill. And
Yeah.
and if you have issues, if your income is not there, talk to the accounting department, and contact them. Don't assume. And a lot of people say, well, I called and they didn't do anything. Well, okay, I'm not buying that one.
Yeah.
I know. They call and just don't tell them you're not going to pay your bill. Just to say, well, what do I need to do? What's this for? If you don't know what it's for, ask. They can get you the information that you got to ask. All right, total margin also down. Well, that would just make sense if your operating margin's down, your total margin's down. Cash flows about what you would think would be a cash flow for normal this year. I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. I think you use a lot of cash for your capital, which is a lot more
Yes.
than you have.
Yes.
And then you've got net cash for non-capital financing activities. So a lot of money sitting there.
Yes.
But your net cash provided by operating activities, Kasey, I see $1.4 million. That's not a bad number.
No.
That's actually an up number. So that's good. And then, as I mentioned, Ms. Nyberg did, is that some of your numbers actually look better for this fiscal year than they did last year.
Yes.
And they're on the net operating side. So when you start to look at that, that is a good.
Yes.
Even though you had a loss, it's still a good. We always talk about the material weaknesses. That's crazy stuff. We always talk about the segregation of duties.
Yes.
And they had a little issue with some inventory and credit card purchases, and of course the accounts receivable.
Yes.
So nothing brand new there that we haven't already touched. The audit committee letter went over a couple things that showed deficiency of revenues over expenses, 1.177. So again, I think overall this is a pretty good actually statement, considering
Sure.
it's that time of
Sure.
year.
I mean, I think anytime you have as big a hit as we had for revenue, for volume because of the COVID and COVID-19 issues, to stay as healthy as we did was good. And again, I think there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, PPP dollars, huge for us. That was
Absolutely.
a huge help. And
Especially
so,
at that time in
Yes.
March, April, and May,
Yeah.
when things were a mess.
it was a very, very big help. And so, yeah, for us,
Right.
that
Not for
really
everybody.
helped.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody took advantage of it. It gave you time to recover or recoup. That 8 weeks doesn't sound like much. Did you guys just do the 8 weeks, or did you do
Yes.
the 24?
Yes.
All right. So the 8 weeks doesn't, like I said, doesn't sound like a long time, but that 2 months, because you have to revamp your entire strategy.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, look at us. Where are we today? I mean, we are still substantially down
Right.
with volume and
Sure,
everything.
sure.
The I mean, and it's still challenging today. We are still struggling with cash flow, and when you look at our balance sheet, you go, well, how the heck you
Yeah.
guys got all the cash in the world? Yeah, but
It's not
we
ours.
we can't use it, and if we do use it, what's the payback? What's the over the time? How
Yeah.
long will we have to pay this back?
What's that penalty going
Yeah,
to be?
because if it's just as we don't want to get into that. We don't want to get into a situation
Yeah.
where we owe the government back dollars and
Right. You know,
that,
they always
but-
tell people put money aside for a rainy day fund. That's kind of what this is.
yes,
But what is the detriment of taking the money out of that rainy day fund? It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So if you would use your Medicare advancement payments, you're not going to get the money later.
yeah,
So there's a slap when all of a sudden, you know, we don't know if this is going to come back. And right now we have kind of a little resurgence. But I will say that the hospital has, now that you know what's going on, you have the precautions in place.
Sure.
That's what did
Sure.
not happen in March, April,
Yes.
May when nobody knew.
Yes. Yes.
So, very good. Well, I'm not going to go over. There are some CARES compliance things with the COVID-19 and things of that nature, and some other suggestions she made. I don't think we really need to go over
No,
that
no.
at this stage, because a lot of it is just in the future that you're going to probably have to do. So, you know,
yes.
we're not
yeah.
going to worry about
and
that
when
too
that
much.
guidance changes on a
Daily basis.
weekly basis, you know,
Daily basis. Weekly has gone by the wayside
Yeah.
anymore. You know, everything changes on a daily basis. We are talking with Hospital Administrator Kasey Lucas here at KSMO Radio, and talking a little bit about the monthly report. Now, the Board of Directors every month meets. We kind of go over the operations and different things that have gone on that month. As you mentioned, admissions and stuff have been down, but really from your monthly budget, they've been actually better numbers than you anticipated. But compared to last year at this time, they are down a little bit.
yes, yeah. And again, when we budget, we do budget conservatively. So this was a conservative budget.
Sure.
Specifically, the number of admissions, very conservative. Just looking at the monthly budget was 91 admissions, and that's all regular med surge, whether it's swing bed or whether it's observation. That's the total. Where last year, all year, we had an average of about 120. So
Right.
again, conservative. For this month of October, we had 106, so we were above budget admission-wise.
Right.
Length of stay.
That's the difference.
The length of stay that those patients stayed in the hospital was lower than what was budgeted. A
Right.
day lower than
Right.
what was budgeted.
But
so,
a day lower,
Yeah.
when you think about it, a day lower at 106, you drop that down. It was 445 census days. A day lower, 330.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a big difference. 2.71 days to 3.35. So maybe people not quite as sick being admitted, being checked out, and sending home. You know,
Yep.
that's the way it worked. And we'll get into the acuity here just a little bit.
mhm.
But as far as the acuity, it wasn't as bad in the month of October.
Right.
So, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we do know that there have been a couple days that the acuity was high, which usually happens in a month, once
Yes.
or twice, maybe
Yes.
3 times.
Yep.
So the length of stay has been down, but as far as, like I say, some of the numbers, not terrible, but the length of stay is the big
Yes.
driving factor there.
Yes.
They're just not in the hospital as long as they were before, and a lot of that is insurance. They just won't pay for that extra
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they like to question it quite a bit. I know.
Yeah.
Like, why did you stay in there? I don't know. I had 5 different things wrong with me, but I don't know why I stayed in the hospital. That's crazy. Outpatient registrations actually were up a little bit.
Yes.
Cardiopulmonary, though, was down. That's one of those things that, and I will say this for cardiopulmonary, there was a little time in there they were moving, getting kind of in that transition
Yes.
phase. So there was
Yes.
a few days that they weren't able to do too much. However, I will say that with the COVID-19, they're very, very cautious. If you've got COVID-19, there's a lot of cardiopulmonary tests that you can't take, which I found out from myself. You can't take till you're 30 days or
Yes.
cleared 2 straight times of COVID. Otherwise, they have to go clean that machine. It's like, what, $30,000 to do that? Oh,
Yeah.
that would hurt. So anyway, so that's down a little bit. Lab tests down just a tad. Radiological procedures, pretty close to normal, not too far off. Rehab, though, well, people are busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're busy. And home health is down just a tad. Long-term care, we're not full again. We lost a resident.
Yeah.
Very good. Are we still down one?
Yeah,
Do you
we're
know?
down 3 at this point.
Oh, 3?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, we're at 15 today. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, very good. If you have someone that you'd like to have in the long-term care, contact the hospital. Let them know.
Yes.
You know, there's a waiting list, but if some people aren't ready to go in yet, then they don't have to go.
Well, and this COVID,
I know.
I mean, we're trying to. I'm gonna knock on wood. I mean, we do have all of those residents today are negative, no signs and symptoms. I know that we still screen and talk with our employees every day. Any day to day, we could have some employee that's exhibiting symptoms, and we make sure they don't go to the unit.
Right.
And so, again, trying to keep that. Again, you look at these things and you go, okay, if all the residents have had it, and what have they built up antibody wise to fight this thing off and to be immune or have some immunity to it. So you don't know. I mean, we don't know.
Well, we don't
know enough. So
we don't. But anyway, but if somebody's interested in long-term care,
Yes,
please call a hospital.
definitely.
And get that loved one of yours, put on the waiting list. If nothing else, just say, hey, I understand you got a couple openings, and I've got a loved one that I would like to have use your facility. All right, let's talk about, are we at the ER right now? ER visits, they're down. But I think a lot of people are still hesitant,
Oh yeah,
before they
Yeah.
go to the hospital.
yeah. And that's important to say.
It is.
Do not hesitate if you think you are experiencing an emergency situation.
Come
You
in.
need to come in. I know COVID is scary. I know that all of that is scary, but our employees do use precautions that they need to, and we do clean every room every time.
I can attest to that.
So, I know it's scary, but if you need that help, don't put it off. Come on in and see us.
Yep. Call them. Let them know. Call 911. If you
Call
got a
your primary care
situation.
physician, and if
Yeah.
you don't have one, you need to come in and see us in the
Yeah.
ER.
Don't put it off.
Nope.
'Cause you put things off too long, and you're going to pay possibly a dear price.
Mhm.
You don't want to do that. All right. Yeah, I got the warning. Sometimes you get a warning.
Yes.
And sometimes you abide by that warning and you learn. You learn
Mhm.
a lot. Okay, so as far as the emergency department, we had 84 patients admitted when it came in. 23 left against medical advice. That's probably not a good number. We don't like to see people leaving when the doctor says you probably should stay.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people don't want to stay. I was one. I went in there. I thought I'd be out, half hour, 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours.
Get a little fluids. Be all right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was a little dehydrated, right? 5 days later. You don't, until they take all the tests, you don't know.
Yeah.
Let them take the test, find out. And if you're good to go, they're going to tell you you're good to go. You're not good to go, they're going to tell you that too. And if you say, well, I'm going to leave anyway, I can't imagine what would happen if I'd have left.
Oh, I know. That
Yeah,
that's
I couldn't imagine.
that's
So,
scary.
It is. All right, ambulances, they're still out there busy. They are still having quite a few dry runs, but we talk about it. But I think October is a little bit higher, almost 38%.
Yep.
But it's who knows? Some accidents, you show up and they don't need you, and some accidents you show up and they need to.
Yep. That's right.
All right, very good. Moving forward, operating statement, as we mentioned, the hospital did have a loss from operations. But there are some signs. There are some signs showing. Getting a little bit
Yeah.
more on that patient revenue side. It's starting to climb a little bit. Not what it was last year, obviously. You're still about $800,000
Yes.
down and below budget, but getting more. Just
Yeah, I'm going to say expenses. When you start looking at the expenses were up for this month, and a few things. Some of the COVID expenses, some of the whether it's supplies, whether it's pharmacy, those are things that are hitting us as we go through here. Employee benefits. We had a huge month in claims for employee benefits. So
I can see that.
it's just one of those things where you don't, here or there, you're $200,000, $300,000 off of where you should be, and it's just timing of those things.
Sure it
hitting
is. Sure it is.
The financials. So.
Well, and as we've talked about, and a lot of people don't understand, Casey, and I had a chance to see it firsthand, is what COVID-19 has done to hospitals. Your acute care, you have to separate it out to those who have COVID and those who don't. Those who have COVID are in a room by themselves. There are no double rooms. And then they have to put on all the personal protection equipment every single time they come into that room. So if you buzz them 18 times, that's 18 suits that have to get thrown away.
Yes.
Because everything that comes in,
Yes.
they throw away. So can you imagine it? I mean, I'm just sitting there. I was just watching dollars flow right out of the trash can every time I saw that. So there's just no way of recycling
Yes.
this. There's no way of cleansing this to hit something with an electrostatic guard and clear it all.
Yeah.
I said, it just doesn't make sense. You put a gown on to come in and turn my machine back on and to walk back out 4 minutes later and throw it away. But that's what has to be done.
Sure.
That's expensive.
Sure. And when you have
That was just for my room.
that's just for your room. Imagine when we had that on in our long-term care.
Yeah.
That was a huge expense. We ran out of room for all of the biohazard material
I'll
that they were creating.
Yeah.
They our biohazard company comes and collects that stuff every 2 weeks. Well, we were running out of room for that stuff, and so
Crazy.
Yes.
It is crazy. And those expenses, even if they apply for help from the county, which,
Yes.
now that supposedly the money is shut off.
Yes.
However, you still don't have it. You still got to pay for it first. And you have to wait for them to approve, maybe reimburse again. You may not get all of it back. You may get some of it back.
Yeah.
But whatever you get back is great, but you can see why expenses there can get us out of hand
Yes.
very quickly.
Yes.
So, yeah, and when you see it firsthand, you just can't imagine how much waste that is.
Mm-mm.
It just seems non-logical. And of course, there's that logic we talked about
Yeah.
earlier. As an accountant, I can use that again somewhere, somehow.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to. As Kasey was mentioning, the operating expenses, there were a few higher areas. The supplies, obviously, one of them, about $130,000, $150,000 more than normal. The employee benefits up over $100,000 more than your monthly budget. Otherwise, I mean, really, maintenance a little bit higher because you've got to keep cleaning everything.
Yes.
So you've got to keep doing that stuff. And then, of course, when you start talking about every other little thing that goes on, disinfectants here, this here, this here. So there's just a lot of little things that you didn't have to do before, you have to do now. And they
Yes.
cost money.
They do.
Very good. Anyway, let's move on to the balance sheet, which again is a very solid balance sheet. We talked about the fixed assets going up. That continues to go up with the improvements made to the hospital. Got a lot of new sewer in. You got a new room in. The MRI is in.
Yes.
You got that. That's almost finished right now. I mean, are they doing a sample test yet?
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
very good.
Yes. They
Cool.
started last week doing.
Very good.
some sample tests and
So
looking at
there you-
images and doing all that.
Ah,
Mhm,
so very good.
mhm.
So that's right around the corner.
Yes.
That'll
yes.
be opening up very soon. That's
Yeah.
good. And the liabilities, obviously, with the different construction work that the Salem Hospital has, they have to go up. You have
Yeah.
bond money to pay that, and once it's there and incurred, you got to pay it.
Yeah.
And that's going to
Yeah.
be done here soon. Very good. Still got some sewer work being done, all right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sewer work and administration hallway. Now that's not, but yes, definitely.
Is it out of the operating room now?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're
You're done
we're
there,
we're
right?
done with the operating room. We're done with the entrance into the ER. We're done with the ER. This is the last phase of the sewer project, and
Okay.
so they started digging last week. So
Okay.
had the concrete up and started digging, and again, we hope that's 3 weeks away from being finished, and so
Well, it'd be
that will
nice,
be
right before
flooring and
Christmas.
everything in
Wouldn't
there.
that be
So
nice?
that would be a nice little
That'd be
Christmas
nice.
present.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
To be
So,
done there.
But that's a lot of work, you
Yes.
have to go and find the line and then dig it up and have to do it in segments because you can't shut the hospital down. Just to do
yeah.
that. So,
And we had minimal, and thank God we had minimal shutdown for electric, because again, there was conduit under that
Oh, I'm
concrete
sure, yeah.
that's, 50 years old.
55 years old.
Yeah, 50, yeah, more than
That
50,
they-
but yes.
yeah, they gotta lay that down
at least
first.
50 years old, and
Yeah.
so you're starting to look at that and say, well, I'm glad, I'm going to say half of it wasn't any good anymore. It was just old wiring that we
kind of
didn't
wonder how
even
the
have.
lights
Yeah,
turned on.
didn't have going. So we had abandoned certain amounts of it, and so again, it's great but we hope late December we're good to go with that and we're done.
Right.
So
Very good.
yeah.
Let's move forward. Cash flow statement showed a decrease of cash, but that's going to be normal because you're paying for all this work being done.
yes, yep,
And it's a lot of work being done. I will tell you, days cash on hand still artificially high. You've got
Yeah.
a lot of cash, but it's not that money you can use. The CD schedule, that's just kind of there.
yes,
It's there. It's going to be there. $2 million is
Yeah.
going to sit there. The counting aging of the accounts receivable down 8 days, which
Yes.
is always good. Still at
Yes.
100, but hey, we'll take
just
any
chipping
improvement.
away,
Yeah,
just
it's gonna
chipping
take-
away
take
at it.
some
And it's
time.
going to take a while.
You bet. And then the acute care staffing by patient acuity. We talked about that.
Yes.
There were basically 3 days it was really tough. And a couple of days that really by the middle of the month was the worst. Really came in and had a little blast right around the 15th, 16th, 17th, where the acuity got kind of high. And then that is then now the patients, I should say the nurses are staffed based upon the acuity.
Yes,
So
Yes.
as the acuity rises, you got more nurses.
more nurses. Yep, yep. And really, we want to be prepared. If we had 4 nurses on any time, I mean, we could take close to capacity.
Sure.
So, and that's really what we shoot for. Is that, I mean, from one day to the next, you could have a jump in or census by 5, 6, 7 in some cases. I
I
mean,
would
you'll
say.
have and at any one time it seems like we are having about 3 to 4 on isolation. So COVID, flu, whatever it is, we have those on isolation. Seems like today. So, and that's the challenge, just like you said. Anytime you go in and out of those rooms, you're doffing your
You're-
PPE.
Right.
So,
And you're not going room to room.
no,
It's not like it used to be where you see 2 patients in a room.
no,
You're seeing 1.
yeah,
And then you got to and then what you don't want to have to do is walk out of the room and put all that stuff back on and come back in. So you want to make sure you get everything accomplished in that room at one time. And
Yeah.
a lot of times if they need something, they call and they meet somebody comes to the hallway and leaves it, and they open the door
Yep.
and they take it. So
Yeah.
so they've got a strategy all worked
Oh,
out.
sure.
But like you said, though, sometimes in the day of COVID here,
Mm-hmm.
where you have this isolation, if your acuity got high with a bunch of people with COVID, which unfortunately
Yes.
the hospital is not choke full of those, but
Yes.
if you had that, you may actually have to get a couple extra nurses because there's no way that they keep changing out of the PPE and then still being able to get in and take care of the people, because you got nurses coming in, taking your blood, bringing you lunch. I mean, you've got breakfast, dinner. They got to come in, check your whatever you got going on. If you've got an IV in, they got to check that.
Yeah.
And every now and then, you're going to have an issue with a machine. It's just not going to want to work.
Yeah. And anytime, there's time that's added to any time you see one of those patients. But definitely just the thought process. I mean, it takes a lot to think every time I go into this room or every time I have a patient, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
Where do I go and what do I do? Who am I?
Right.
You got to remember everything.
Well,
So,
I even said I hated calling down there because I know what they're going to have to do just to come back in and reset my machine. And that's all they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I thought, gosh, I hate calling down there. Obviously, I'm not getting any IV, though.
you
So,
got to have that.
Yeah, that's kind of what's needed. But I kept drinking a lot of water, though. If I don't have it that way, I can drink a lot of water. But it would beep, beep, beep. But I was kind of hoping if they were out and they heard it, they would come in,
Yeah.
But I really did. I hated calling them and saying, guys, my machine's beeping again.
Yeah.
But I never had a problem with one of the nurses coming in. They weren't mad. I just felt sorry for them. That's just my own personal thing. That I wouldn't want to keep taking that stuff off and on and put it. I remember when my dad was in the hospital, I had to do that.
Yeah.
You had to go to the bathroom, and take it all off, and then come back, put all brand new on. I thought, really?
It's challenging.
Yeah.
It's challenging.
All right. Very good. Debbie Hines reported on a state survey that came back in, revisited November 2nd through 4th. Basically a follow-up to their September meeting.
Yes.
And no deficiencies are anticipated.
And we just got final
got the
word
letter?
Thursday, I believe. And so, yes, there are no deficiencies there.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good. So that's always good news. All right. We know the hospital auxiliary will not be meeting again till further notice. We won't say the end of the year anymore because that's kind of right here.
Yes.
Hospital Foundation's fundraisers right now have been put on hold. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yes.
I won't say that. I hate to say canceled or postponed. I hate to say canceled. Canceled means it's not going to happen. They're just on hold. Don't know. If we got this vaccine, everything starts to work good. Maybe by March, we can start making plans for a summer edition of Dancing with the Stars. Who knows?
That's true.
Now, the USDA Distance Learning and Telemedicine Program, the Taito Care School product is in.
Yes.
And that has to be sent out to all these schools, et cetera, and then tested. That's not as easy as it just sounds in a meeting.
No, and really, I've got providers that they've seen the product and they are very impressed by the product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably will maximize through telehealth. Anytime you get a visit telehealth-wise, there's limitations that you can only do. But with the equipment that we've purchased and we're going to be using, those limitations are less than what they were when we just had an idea of how we were going to do this service.
Right.
So again, I think those providers will, as we start testing, and it's interesting. We test within our own network, and there's not really a lot of challenge with that because again, our network is our network and it's secure and it's working well. And so when we start going outside of that network to get that true telehealth feel, that will be the true test of how those products are working and connections. Always worried about the bandwidth and what people can
what's available.
Yeah, what an organization R1, R2, R3, R4 what they can.
Or Eminence.
Yeah, or Eminence.
You got Bunker, you got Eminence. Yeah. You got other areas.
Where those things are, you don't know what they're, as far as internet, you don't know what they have and the capabilities, and we will start testing that. So, yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Yep.
Hopefully everything works well, because this is really a good idea. That this program is a really good
Yes.
idea.
Yes.
So hopefully it will work once everything is put into place. Again, COVID's slowed that down. So
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm sure that would all have been implemented by now. The community perception marketing, Jason Edwards talked about it. The community CPR training is still going on, but virtually everything else has been kind of put on hold. Again, hopefully we'll get through this holiday season and that vaccine will work and they'll release it and everybody will be able to, we'll get healthy again and we'll get back to some sort of normal.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be.
Chief of Staff report is what I'm going to go past the
Yeah,
publications.
No, that's fine.
All right, Chief of Staff report. There's a couple of things that had to be discussed. One, COVID-19 testing was discussed by Bart Shaw,
Yep.
which is, I'm sure, they updating
Yes.
that constantly.
Yes.
And then the RNA privileges. You had a couple of people that needed to have those approved.
Yes, we have Karen Zhang and Jeffrey Colinch, both CRNAs that were given temporary privileges, and they approved. Well, they recommended that the board approve, and then the board approved
Board does
their
that, right.
their privileges.
Yeah,
And-
they get approved by the medical staff, who
Yeah.
then recommends that the board do the same,
Yeah.
which was the courtesy staff privileges for Jonathan Beers, DO, and Thomas Byrne, MD, as well.
yes.
So very good. COVID update. Nothing's changed with the visitor policy except can't come in, and of course staff continues to do it. But you got some disinfecting equipment now. I mean, you got some pretty cool stuff.
Oh yeah. This stuff is
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is nice, and it will cut our time to turn over those rooms, whatever they, if you've got a patient that needs to come in for some outpatient imaging. I
Okay.
mean, that at some point, was taking 45 minutes to turn that room around, and if you had
45 minutes.
yeah, if you had a patient that came in that might be, you think of our CT is necessary for our stroke program. So if somebody comes in a suspected stroke, we got to be able to get that image and that report back ASAP. And so
Right.
if we're waiting for 45 minutes for this thing to turn over, that could be an
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
And so these products will help us turn those over in minutes. So you get it cut from 45 minutes to 5 minutes. It's
Right.
going to be a good thing.
Well, and one of the things the hospital has continued to invest in equipment, in portable X-ray machines. So I know that in my room they brought in a chest X-ray machine. I did not have to go down to X-ray,
Yep.
so that kept me in my room.
Yes.
However, for like CTs and stuff, you still have to go down.
Yes.
So once you go in there, they go. They were like on that, like,
Yeah.
kind of like flies on meat. As soon as they get done, and everybody's just cleaning it up, getting it ready for the next person. So a lot of neat stuff there. You also were talking about creating a different drive-up testing site outside to keep people out of the rain and stuff, which would have been good for the weekend.
Yes, that would have been good for the weekend.
But it's not quite done yet.
No, it is. I'm gonna say I'm hoping early this week. Again, the staffing of that, we're trying to find somebody that we can staff specifically in that, because again, any one time you've got 5 cars backed up to
Sure.
try and get that, and we just want to again serve our patients as well as we can, and so we're still looking for that staff, and hopefully here in the near future we can open that up.
Okay, very good. So that's something to look forward to. Very good. The MRI is in. The scans, as Kasey's already talked about, been practicing. Already talked about a new outpatient registration area. Well, not really. We kind of talked about a little bit about the sewer project, the administration hallway.
Yep.
But that couldn't be done until the outpatient registration area is pretty well done. The drywall's just about done. HVAC being put in. Getting closer.
They painted
Did they?
at the end of last week, so they've painted now, and they were putting the ceiling grid in, and so I think all the ceiling tiles and all of that is going in. So
Getting closer. man.
getting closer with the flooring and cabinet guy, I think is next couple of
That's
things.
it.
So Yeah.
Well, very good.
Getting
Well,
close.
Getting close. Getting close. All right. Purchases. Well, we got an MRI. We need a stretcher for an MRI because it's a big magnet. That stretcher can
Yes.
fly across the room.
Yes.
If it was a magnet one,
Yes.
wham. Yeah, so a magnetic MRI stretcher from Mary X-Ray Corporation. I don't know where they got that name. You know, I keep looking at that. I said, really? Somebody actually call it that? But they do.
Yes.
And it was $3,924. That's a savings of about $1,076.
Yep.
We'll take it. Very good. And then it's time to start thinking about another election. It's just almost unbelievable.
I know. Year just flew by.
Just elections, just
yeah.
after election after election. But anyway, this is for board seat number 2, Mike Swire's seat. You can start to register on December 15th at 8, and it will end January 19th at 4. If you don't know where District 2 is, and I wouldn't blame you if you don't, because I sure as heck don't. I couldn't tell you where it goes down. It's like a little squiggly line here and there, and then straightens out. And, I couldn't tell you.
North of Salem into Crawford County.
Right, but you can contact the office, and they can tell you.
Yes.
And they actually have a nice map there that can show you exactly where it is if you don't know where you are. Because you may be in District 2, you might be in a different district. Don't know. But call them up at 729-6626. Just ask for administration. They can answer your question. And if you tell them what your address is, more than likely you'll be able to find out. If you couldn't find out immediately, find out very shortly.
Yeah.
I think very good. All right. You normally have a joint board of directors and medical staff dinner. That's not going to happen
Nah,
this
not
year.
going to happen this year.
And the next meeting will be December 15th at noon by Zoom.
Yes.
All right. Very good.
Noon by Zoom.
Noon by Zoom.
Yeah.
That's it. As far as the board meeting, you guys went to closed session.
Yep.
Did you vote on anything?
Nope.
No votes taken?
No
Very
votes taken there.
All right, very good. Well, we appreciate Kasey coming in and spending some time with us. We know we had to reschedule this from last Thursday. We really do appreciate his assistance in that. I know it's a short week this week, and a lot of times things get backed up into 3 days versus 5.
Yeah.
So we do thank him for coming in. And I want to remind everybody, as Kasey mentioned, and as I kind of have personal experience of staying in our hospital, that if you need care, go get it. Do not think that you can get through the holidays. I want to tell you, it didn't take any. I can honestly say, you don't know when something's going to go adverse with your health.
Right.
And I found that out very quickly. So let me just tell you, you don't want to get to the stage I was almost at, to where things may be unreversible.
Right.
That's the key, and that's just what I won't go into any more great detail. But the more you let it go, the further damage you can be doing to your body that you just may not be able to come back from it. Let me tell you, it's not worth it.
No. Not worth it.
Not worth it.
Don't push it. Don't.
The 5 days in the hospital is nothing
Yeah.
compared to what it could have been for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That is the key, okay? So, guys, you've got a great hospital here. You've got a fine staff. I have nothing but good to say about it. I don't know what it would have been like to have that happen to me on the road and go to another hospital that I don't know anybody at and that you're a stranger and how they would have treated me, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
However, I will say that I feel like I got the finest of care once I got there. Once they took the test and actually knew what they were dealing with. Of course, they don't know what they're dealing with. They get me in there. First, they thought it was a heart attack.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a heart attack. Then they checked for stroke. It wasn't a stroke. It's got to be something else. When they find out, and when you think you're going home in 2 hours, like I said, surprise. We got more tests to take.
Your experience, I would think, is not the normal experience that someone would have with COVID. To me, I think of your experience as being, I think, more.
It was every day. Yeah. It was pneumonia
Yeah.
and dehydration, and it can happen, and you may not even know it. But
It'd sneak up on you.
It can. But I had a couple of early signals that I chose to ignore
Mm-hmm.
because I thought I knew better. I think I'm getting one issue and it's something else. So don't always
Get
assume,
checked out.
Don't always assume that you're the best doctor, because you might not be. I mean, I don't remember any PhD behind my name or DO or anything
Yeah.
else. But I mean, sometimes we encounter things and we think that we know what this is, and I'll be honest with you, it kind of shook my rock, I guess, for my foundation. And thinking, you're not 10 feet tall and bulletproof. You're not even 10 feet tall, much less bulletproof. But you definitely want to make sure that you take good care of yourself. All right. Well, thank Kasey for coming in. Appreciate that. You have a happy Thanksgiving, you and the family, I hope, and all the kids. And you're gonna stay home.
Yes, we'll be local, so
Yeah.
it'll be a good thing. So
Very good.
Well, thank you, Stan, and,
Very
and,
good.
and happy Thanksgiving to you and,
Thank you.
and everyone out there. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Kasey. Kasey Lucas, our hospital administrator at the Salem Memorial District Hospital.